The ballroom was expecting a duchess. Instead, a secretary's name appeared on the card, and the Duke of Aldermere had already decided not to correct it.
Miss Eleanor Winslow was not born to be looked at. She was born to be useful. For 3 years, she had served as secretary to the Dowager Lady Ashcombe, answering letters, balancing accounts, and standing exactly 1 step behind wherever the Dowager stood, arms full of whatever needed carrying, so no one else had to. She had one habit nobody had ever asked about. Every morning, before the household woke, she solved the newspaper's mathematical puzzle in the margin of whatever paper was nearest, marking each answer with a small cross of ink that never fully left her forefinger. She had stopped noticing it years ago.
If a letter went out wrong, it was Eleanor who answered for it. Her position and the Dowager's last remaining standing in the same breath. There was no family fortune behind her to soften a mistake, only the work, done correctly every time. The Dowager's fortunes that season depended on a single thing she could not simply request: a renewed invitation to the Duke of Aldermere's ball, the one gathering that decided who still mattered in London and who had quietly stopped. She had grown too proud or too tired to ask for it outright, so Eleanor wrote the acceptance letters instead, in a hand steadier than her employer's had been in years, and never once let her own name appear on anything that mattered.
6 days before the ball, a stack of correspondence toppled from the desk. Eleanor caught what she could, resettled the candle, and finished the reply half in the dark. Her hand, tired and unthinking, wrote the name it knew best. Her own. She sealed it before she saw the mistake. It would not have occurred to her to write it on purpose. Women who stood 1 step behind did not send themselves invitations. She went to the townhouse herself to correct it. Explaining seemed simpler than confessing by letter. The Duke had already read the card. Twice. When the footman announced her, the wrong name, spoken as if it were the only right one, the room went quiet in the particular way a room goes quiet when it senses something has not yet been explained to it. Heads turned. No one moved. Somewhere, a glass was set down too carefully, and a woman near the punch table leaned toward her companion and did not bother to lower her voice. Eleanor's first instinct was to explain herself to the nearest footman and leave before anyone required an explanation at all. Her second instinct arrived too late. Then the Duke of Aldermere crossed the floor, took her ink-marked hand as though it were expected, and said the only thing anyone in the room would remember by morning. Soft, sincere. You came anyway. No one else would have. His aunt, Lady Prescott, found him within the hour, her voice pitched low and urgent. She spoke of the Vane family, of Cecilia Vane's understanding with him, of the land negotiations that understanding had quietly secured, and of what he stood to lose the moment the Vanes decided he'd embarrass them in front of London. He listened, unbothered, turning a glass of nothing in particular between his fingers, and replied, "Then let them talk. They so rarely have anything interesting to discuss." Eleanor tried to leave twice. The first time, she said she ought to find the Dowager's carriage. He said the Dowager had already gone ahead, and offered his arm instead of an answer. The second time, she moved toward the side door. He simply stood near it, not blocking her, only present, and asked if she'd seen the garden yet. She stayed. He looked for a moment, less certain than a duke has any right to look.
"I don't entirely know why I let the invitation stand," he admitted. "I only knew I didn't want to correct it." 4 days later, Eleanor came to his study to return a ledger he'd left at the Ashcombe house. Nothing more, she told herself, than an errand. "You used me to unsettle the Vanes," she said. Not angry, simply certain. A card sent to the wrong name is an easy thing to forgive.
A duke who keeps the mistake standing is not doing it by accident. He said nothing for long enough that she believed she was right. He crossed to the window instead of answering, as though the argument he needed was somewhere outside it.
Then, I've read 100 guest lists in my life, Miss Winslow. Every one the same names, the same handwriting, the same nothing. Yours had a puzzle solved in the margin, worked out in ink, as if the evening required solving too. I have spent years performing interest I do not feel. You are the first thing all season I did not have to pretend to notice. He paused. Wanting someone's company is not the same as using it. She did not answer him. She set down the small pencil she'd been turning in her hands the entire visit, the one she used every morning on the puzzle page, and left it on his desk as she went.
Eleanor did not wait to be defended. She went to Lady Prescott herself and spoke plainly of Lady Ashcomb's 40 years of loyalty to the family. Nothing more, nothing pleaded. The invitation was renewed within the week, without condition, and Cecilia Vane, for her part, withdrew from the arrangement with more grace than anyone had extended her, and was not spoken of unkindly again. Eleanor returned to her ledgers and her letters. She did not write to him. He did not call. 9 days passed. A letter arrived. 1 page, 1 paragraph, 1 line beneath it. The card was never a mistake. Come anyway. She read it 4 times at the writing desk, then twice more by the window. The smile that followed was not small or polite. It was the kind she'd have hidden from anyone watching.
The same ballroom, lit the same way. The same size of crowd gathered near the same doors. The same doorway she'd once stood in, correcting a name that hadn't needed correcting after all. This time, the Duke had written the card himself, in his own hand, and sent it a full week early, so no one could mistake it for anything but intention. The footman announced her, and this time, the Duke was already watching the door. She did not hesitate at the threshold this time. She stepped through it. Women who stood 1 step behind did not walk through doors like this. She walked through it anyway. The first time, her name in that room had been an accident. This time, it was a decision, made twice. Once by him, and once, deliberately, by her. Thank you for staying until the end of this one. Next week, a governess, a locked library, and a letter no one was ever supposed to find. Stay close.